Oke, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 6, which consists of Harun Rahman, Misal Jumayun, and me, Muhammad Fajar. We'll present our material, Ethnography of Communication, Hymn Speaking Theory. For this material, we divide into three chapters. The first is Ethnography of Communication, second is Communicative Competence, and the last is Hymn Speaking Theory. Okay, let's begin with Ethnography of Communication. So what is Ethnography of Communication? Ethnography of Communication is the study of language and cultural interpretation with focus on communication behavior patterns. Ethnography of Communication, an approach from within linguistic anthropology or LA, has typically been concerned with challenging assumptions about cultural homogeneity through a focus on language use interaction. The aim of ethnography of communication is to describe the knowledge that participants in verbal interaction need and display in order to communicate successfully with one another. So the purpose of this ethnography is to interact verbally in order to be able to communicate successfully with each other according to the existing context. Okay, next is Himes. Himes is a person who was well known for criticizing both linguistics for not making ethnography the starting point for the analysis of a language use, and anthropology for insufficiently drawing upon linguistics to understand and describe culture and context states that it's not linguistic but ethnography, not language but communication, which must provide the frame of reference with which the path of language in culture and society is to be assessed. So the origin of the Hames theory is a protest against the use of ethnography as a starting point for analyzing the use of language, because the use of linguistics is not sufficient to understand and describe culture and context. So what is the goal of ethnography of communication? Is to study communicative competence of a specific speech community by discovering and analyzing patterns of communication that organize the use of language in particular communicative activities. To find and analyze communication patterns that use language in communication activities will be explained on the next slide by my friend, and thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
And now I would like to explain communicative competence. So, Himes proposed that concept of communicative competence, which is underlying knowledge of the rules of speaking. They are the rules that allow the native speaker to speak appropriately. He offered three relevant units to be analyzed in ethnography of speaking, which are hierarchically ordered. So, the three relevant units in communicative competence are: the first is the highest level, that is speech situation. So, the social situation in which speaking takes place. It takes into account all the features of the situations. And the next level is speech event. Ethnographers of communication hold that the speech event constitute by the interaction of several components, of which language is only one, is the basic unit of everyday communication, not clause or sentence. And the third, the lowest level unit of analysis is the speech act. Speak acts are the constituent parts of speech events. Speech act theory has to do with the function of use of language. So, in the broad sense, we might say the speech acts are all the acts we perform through speaking, all the things we do when we speak. Then, Himes also identifies competence into four aspects. Himes identify the possible, the feasible, the appropriate, and the perform as four distinct aspects of communicative competence. The first, what is formally possible in a language in terms of its encoded grammatical and lexical properties, and the second, formal properties are actually processed in the mind, then we shall naturally focus on feasibility. And the third, a focus on appropriateness will bring context into consideration. And the fourth, how far a communicative language component is performed or produced, the frequency of its occurrence.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mizar Humayun and I will continue the presentation about hymn speaking grid. Hymns also propose that their speech event have components that should be taken into account to produce a satisfactory description of any particular speech event. He offers the mnemonic device of speaking grid as a heuristic for the various fact or she deems to be relevant. Such factors are setting, participant, and exequence, key, instrumentalities, and genre. There are six, eh, there are eight key elements speaking. The key elements speaking are first, the setting and scan. Setting as the setting refers to the time and place. Example, home, classroom, and etc. Second is the participant. The participant refers to the actors in the scan and their role relationship, including personal characteristics such as age, gender, social status, and relationship. The participant includes various combinations of speaker-hearer, addresser-address, or sender-receiver. Example, mother-doctor, teacher-pupil. The third is ends. Ends refers to the conventionally recognized and expected outcomes of an exchange. The fourth is act. Act sequence refers to the actual form and context of what is said. The precise words used, how they are used, and the relationship of what is said to the actual topic at hand. The fifth is key. Key refers to the tone, manner, or spirit in which a particular message is conveyed, light-hearted, serious, mocking, sarcastic, etc. The sixth is instrumentalities. Instrumentalities refers to the choice of particular channel, example oral, written, or telegraphic, and to the actual form of speech drawn from community repertoire, such as the language, dialect, code, or register that is chosen. The seventh is norm. Norm of interaction and interpretation refers to the specific behaviors and properties that attach to speaking, and also to how these may be viewed by someone who does not share them. Example, loudness, silence, gaze return, and etc. The eighth is genre. Genre refers to the clearly demarcated types of utterance, such as poems, proverbs, riddles, sermons, prayer, lectures, and editorials. The cultural category of thought, example, insults, compliment, and apologies.
Hello, and now I want to explain about the use of hymn speaking theory. So, this is the example of the conversation between Mr. Joko and Mr. Brown. In here, Mr. Brown as a foreigner and Mr. Joko as a driver. So we have to analyze the speaking theory from Himes. So the first is setting and scene. The setting and scene is the foreigner, Mr. Brown, and the Japanese driver conversation is at Ponorogo. At that time, the foreigner and Japanese driver would be festive and at other times serious. And the second is participant. The foreigner, Mr. Brown, told the driver, Mr. Joko, his direction to Taman Indah hotels. So the third is ends. The ends is the driver give information and show the direction to the Taman in the hotel to the foreigner. And the fourth, act sequence. While Mr. Joko thought that it took 1 hour to Taman in the hotel, Mr. Brown interrupt him by asking to drive there for a half hour. So the interrupt is identified to act sequence. And the next is key. Mr. Joko might imitate Mr. Brown's voice and gesture, or he might address him in serious voice, emphasizing the reality of the distance. And the next is instrumentalities. Mr. Brown went to Taman Indah Hotel for attending a seminar. So this is the reason how Mr. Brown went to Taman Indah Hotel. So the next is norms. A conversation between a foreigner and the driver might be with interruption but politely, or might not be lying as norms. And the last is genre. The kind of speech, act, or event used here, the dialogue. The driver might tell the distance and the cost to Taman in the hotel for information, or polite responses as moral attitudes. So I think enough for our explanation about the material ethnography of communication, Heim speaking theory, and we will